Welcome back to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast. Today we are headed up to the Pacific Northwest to talk with Chelsey Gregg, head women's basketball coach at Portland State University. We talk with Coach Gregg about the landscape of coaching and recruiting in the Pacific Northwest, a little bit of zone defense, and the balance of being a young mother and a D1 head coach. As always, thank you for listening to the After the Timeout podcast.
All right, Coach. So we like to start off with the opening tip. For you, I will be honest, I have been a follower on Twitter. And so we wanted to start with you. How did you know you wanted to be a coach? We find this so interesting with a lot of our guests that are obviously athletes and then get into coaching. What was that like first moment when you were like, I think I want to try this coaching thing? And then did you ever have a moment when you were hired where you're like, wow, I'm one head coach now? Just tell us about it.
Man. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah. I think for me, it's kind of progressed throughout the years. Been coaching now for 14 years, going to my 15th season in college here. And I think at first was like, what next? I think going into college, I thought maybe med school, big dreams of doing something different perhaps. But the reality was school was taking a little bit too much time away from my game. And so I ended up switching to a health and PE major, was able to focus on basketball a little bit. And then when it was all said and done, I couldn't leave the game. Had a passion for it. And so that's where it started. Wanted to share that with others. And it's really turned into, I love the mentorship piece of coaching and just being able to empower these young women to achieve those goals. So started as, what do we do? I don't know. I've always played basketball. What do you do next? What is life without, college athletics, and then turn into more of a mentorship role for sure.
All right, so let's, before we really get into the meat and potatoes here, I just want you to give us a little info, for our listeners who maybe aren't up on Portland State women's basketball, right? Sometimes it's hard in the Midwest because, right, games are on super late, or you might miss it or whatever. So kind of like what is your brand, and like how do you guys define your program, and what are you guys all about? Even if you want to throw in some props for your players, your coaches, whatever it may be, just let us know about your program.
Yeah, well, I've been here at Portland State, so entering year 2 as head coach, entering year 8 here at Portland State. So I was an assistant for several years prior to getting the head job. I think here we're a unique situation. I love it. Portland, a little bit of both worlds. We have the city, but then we have like over 500 trees on campus. We have the outdoors. You got the coast 90 miles away. You got the gorge, not too far away also. So in terms of placement, I think the Pacific Northwest is awesome. In terms of what we do basketball wise, we're definitely about our 4 R's and building culture right now, building that foundation to carry us into those next years, building that championship culture. So we talk about being relational, resilient, reliable, and ready, and just really every day speaking to those things. So that's what you're going to get from Portland State women's basketball. In terms of style of play, you do see defensively, we get after it in our zone, kind of unique. That's been our identity throughout the years. Looking to perhaps switch it up in the years to come, but really think that it's been an advantage for us, and especially when you get to tournament play and see the same stuff throughout the year, that scouting report becomes really just a lot easier to get through when we're playing that kind of zone defense. So offensively, we like to play a little bit faster than we are right now. We'll get there. But allow our players to play the game, really teach where the help side is, what is the defense giving you, what's that defensive shift look like, and definitely give some freedom, but have to have some structure. I know what a good shot, bad shot is, and those kinds of things. But ultimately, we want to play because we have fun, we love the game, and create that atmosphere for our student athletes.
So, Coach, I just wanted to get into those 4 R's real quick, and if you could just share with our listeners again just what they are, and for you, just kind of how those 4 R's came about. Like, why did you choose those 4?
Yeah, and I think that's the big question, right? I mean, I think throughout coaching with different head coaches and growing up, and playing for different coaches and programs, there's a lot of buzzwords. Everybody's got to kind of have their thing, and I was like, man, these things are important. I like this here, passion, and kind of putting that together, and throughout the years, building that philosophy philosophies. So if and when you get that opportunity, you're ready to go. And so relational piece, it's just so important. We have to get to know each other. I feel like that's how you create that trust and that chemistry, and that's how you build great teams. And so that's going to be our foundation. So that relational piece, we talk about how we show up for each other, especially when things are hard. That's the reality of college basketball. And I think just in life in general, what do we do? How do we show up for each other when we're challenged, and not just when everything is going our way? And so talking about what that looks like, relational in terms of when we bring on recruits, how do we interact with them as a group? How do we make them feel welcome? In our admin, within our community, we want to make sure we're being relational. In terms of resiliency, just again, how do we react? How do we respond when things get hard? Building that grit muscle we talk about, being reliable. I'm not a flaky person. I don't want teams that are flaky. I just sometimes, I don't know, women's sports, we get a bad rap on that kind of stuff. And so I just making sure that, we do what we're going to say we're going to do, show up on time. And just as a teammate standpoint, like I can look at you and say, I know that I can rely on you to show up for me every time. I got your back, these kind of things. And again, how do we build that foundation, that chemistry, that culture, that no matter what, that they know that we're in their corner. And then ready, we talk about staying ready so you don't get ready. But that could be anything. That's our daily, hey, how did they prepare for practice? How are you ready to go for games? What's that prep look like, to getting them ready for their next 40 years? Do they want to do career? Do they want to play professionally? Do they want to have a family? What does that look like? I had no idea that being a college athlete and sports in general was going to prepare me to be a mom. The things that I didn't know and still don't know as a parent, figuring it out of a 2.5-year-old, but the reality of it's hard. And a lot of the things that I learned through sport have, I feel like, prepared me for this time.
So you led into one of our questions, so I'm going to flip it in the order, but let's talk about the challenges of being a young mother and being a Division I head coach. Obviously, both take an immense amount of time, and I'm sure there are some clashes of that time. So, just kind of talk to us a little bit about being a young mother and a D1 head coach all at the same time.
Yeah. It's an honor. I think that's the real thing, is that I had always thought that perhaps this could be an opportunity, and thinking through the years, when's the right time? What does the opportunity look like? What's going to be the right fit? And so looking at those things, but I appreciate you calling me young. Thank you. I'm going to be 37 this fall. And so that feels nice, because I'm closer in age now with the, at times with the parents and the players that I recruit than I once was. I have a 2.5-year-old and they have high schoolers. So I feel behind at times. So I appreciate you saying that young piece, but I think it's never a balance. It's a harmony. If I feel like I'm missing out at home and then I focus on that, then I don't want to fall behind at work. And so just finding that harmony. We're thankful that I have, my husband's actually on staff. He's one of my assistant coaches. And so just really thankful for his help. And then we have family that meets us on the road or stays here with our little guy. So that's a lot of it. Kind of pushing that mom guilt aside and focus, be present where I'm at. When I'm home, be present there. And when I'm here with our players, that I'm present with them. And we have a family atmosphere, though. They like it when he can be around, and they grab him and run him around and all the things. So it's a fun piece. I feel like I like to be that example, that they can see that they can do both. But yeah, and to speak to like, oh man, Division I head coach, I don't know. I came from the NAIA ranks, y'all. So it's wild. I think that I'm here and get this opportunity. Thankful for it. Had an AD that believed in me, and provided a lot of professional development in that area. And so yeah, it's just wild. It's exciting, something different every day. So yeah, I think that it's just excited to be here. Well, and hard work.
She doesn't know, Todd. I called her young because we're all about the same age. That just makes us sound young too.
I'm the old one here. I'm the old 40-year-old here.
Oh man.
So all right.
Is that
so
a Kraken hat? You got a Kraken hat on?
Yeah, it's a Kraken hat. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm originally from outside of Seattle, so there we go.
Okay. There we go. So keep on the head coach thing, right? You're an assistant, you're doing your thing, right? And I feel like everybody, when you get that head coaching job, you're like, oh, okay, this I didn't know, right? And you became a head coach, in your early 30s. A lot. That's obviously a lot younger than most coaches, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
coaches who kind of put in their time and an assistant here and there. I guess one, like, I think you feel ready, but you're maybe not ready. So maybe what was that moment? You're like, oh yeah, I'm ready. But then you're like, uh-oh, I didn't
Yeah.
realize that. And then what kind of things did you do maybe with some of your mentors or people you knew to kind of help you make that jump over that 18 inches, right? That's really not that far, but it makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is that I've learned is that you can do all the preparation. You can, depend on your head coach and how much they allow you to do in different areas, you can think that you're perhaps ready. But the reality is, I don't know that anybody's ever ready for it until you've been in that chair, been in that seat, called your timeout. I mean, even at the high school level, I think until you have run a program and had to been the person that are making the decisions that you're, responsible for these young women, I think until you do that, it's different. I think the biggest thing for me was, in that move over, I didn't handle a lot of the budget stuff, and so that was different. A lot of decision making, but I think ultimately just my time. I had a lot of time as an assistant. I had no idea that I had that much time. And as a head coach now, scheduling out meetings and different things, and it's never to say, oh, look at how busy I am. It's not like that. But the reality of my days are structured a lot differently than they once were. So I think that was the big piece for me to kind of realize what can you say yes to? What do you need to say no to? How do you prioritize? Um, and those kinds of things. Remind me your second piece of that question.
Just maybe some people you relied on when you were
Oh
making that
yeah,
transition, maybe a mentor or, you know, people you've played with that have gone on to coach, things like that to kind of helped you, give you some guidance there.
yeah, absolutely. I think another thing that comes to mind when I moved over is that relationship with the players. I mean, I was involved in the process, a lot of recruiting them, and that's great. The familiarity was there, and they knew me, what I was about. But now it's different. I'm the one controlling playing time and different things like that. And so having a solid staff is important to me, and they can go to them. But it just changed the dynamic a little bit. In terms of just the support and mentorship, I've really been fortunate to through the WBCA to be involved in some mentor groups. And so I was able to reach out to them. They've been super solid. Just, hey, what do you think about this? Or here's a situation. This year, I don't know how many teams went through it, but for us, we had two COVID shutdowns again. And we went a 27-day stretch without playing a game, and trying to get back into that. And hey, how do we do this? And now we're playing, Thursday, Saturday, Monday for 2 months straight. How do we handle this? What does this look like? Um, so I was really fortunate. I had a group of coaches that invited me in, and they were anywhere from like third year head coaches to like first and second year coaches. And so we had opportunity to kind of check in with each other once a month and just talk through things that we're going through and different stuff like that. That was super helpful.
So I wanted to kind of get into a little bit on recruiting.
Yeah.
The first, because it is obviously unique where you're located for some recruiting things. For you in the Pacific Northwest, we've had some coaches from Alaska on. I'm trying to think of some from that area. But for you, is it ever a challenge to recruit the East Coast or the Midwest or the Deep South as a coach from the Pacific Northwest? For travel, for time zones, for those kind of things when you're talking to recruits?
Yeah. I think my first question is where are they interested in going to school? I think because the reality is we could recruit in those areas, but what's the reality that they want to come to the West Coast, and trying to find that interest early and understand that, because a lot of times we've got into it deep in with some of these recruits, and at the end, I think it's just too far. And it's like, oh shoot, I wish I would have known, I wish we would have had that conversation, months ago until we got this deep into it. And number two is just budget, to be honest. I think a lot of the recruiting for us is regional. But not to say, you look at our roster, we do have a kid from Chicago, and she's awesome and is doing really well for us. And so we have players from 8 different states, a couple of international players. And so we're open to expanding. our area of where we recruit, but I think regionally is probably budgetary wise is where we're at. For those kids that are interested in the West Coast, email. I know we get a lot, but stand out, make it personal, send video. I think those things really help. Have a catchy headline, subject, something that makes me want to read it, that kind of stands out from the rest. But we're open to it. I just think A, budget, and B, realistically, they need to know themselves. Can you be that far away from home? Is that going to be the right fit? Because at the end, we're open to it, but they're the ones, and we feel like we have a family atmosphere, and we're going to support you in a lot of different ways to help with that transition. But it's still, can you do it? You know, is it too far away from home?
And yes, we're going to talk about Rima off the air because yes,
Oh,
I am from that conference, so I got to coach against her while you get to coach for her.
yeah.
So let's get into now. Okay, you got the recruits there. You have a very unique conference.
Yeah.
Your conference goes from Eastern Washington all the way down to Northern Arizona and all the way, as far east as Idaho, Montana. So it's a large conference that's expansive in miles. So kind of take us through what it's like for you guys, for a road trip to whether it's Northern Arizona or whether it's Moscow, Idaho, kind of take us through those challenges of taking a road trip for you guys.
Yeah, traditionally we play that Thursday, Saturday schedule. And so we're real fortunate because we are like 15, 20 minutes from the airport. And so for us, and typically it's not a big deal to be able to get back home Saturday nights. So we play Thursday nights, typically 6 to 7 o'clock. Saturdays, 12 or 2 is typically how we play. And so getting out is nice for us from those areas. But you're right, there's a lot of travel involved. It's a tough conference, high level of basketball. This year we had a road trip where we were, on the road for 7 days just with reschedules. And we started in Eastern Washington, went to the Montanas, and then back to Idaho, and then took the bus back to Portland. And so that was a lot of miles on that bus. It's brutal, but typically we're real fortunate, get to fly in, fly out, leave Wednesday, come back Saturday night. So it's actually not too bad.
I'm sure you find out a lot about your team on a 7-day road trip, huh?
That's right. Yeah. A lot of it, man.
Find out a lot.
Yeah. I was super proud of them. There's a lot of time on the bus together, but we got a lot of singing done, some movies, some games. Yeah, we're a pretty good karaoke team. That's for sure.
There we go. All right. So you guys have had a lot of success in the conference tournament. First part of it is what do you think makes your program successful during those tournament times? And then the second part is, as coaches, why do you think some coaches are just better in that format than others, whether it's scouting, whether it's personality, whatever it may be?
Yeah. Players, all the credit to the players. In our runs, it's the players. I mean, I think that's first and foremost. I think throughout the year, you try to set your players up for different situations. So changing things up and having to run things quickly or how we run scouts and be able to pick up things quicker. I think for us at the tournament where we've had success is how we run defensively. We've seen a lot of things, a lot of the similar sets within our zone. And so instead of running through however many man actions again, we are really familiar with what they're running. So I think for us, we peak at the right time and that's a benefit to us. But ultimately, I think it's your players. Are they ready to go? Are they gamers? Are they ready to step up? And I think when we won it in 19, that was the case. We have players that were hungry and experienced. I think we saw it this year with us, with the inexperience hurt us at times for sure. We were playing against, I swear, 7-year COVID players where we had seen them forever, and we had this freshman group. And so I think a lot of it is your personnel as well. Like, have they been there? Do you have the experience at the tournament? All those things. There's a lot of moving parts to it. And I think in the coaches piece is, can we adapt? Can we be flexible? Can we meet players where they're at? And that motivation piece, I think those coaches that can are going to have that success. Those are those that kind of have to do it the same way every time, maybe not. But I haven't had an opportunity to have a lot of experience as a head coach in those settings yet. So I don't know that that's a fair question to speak to on my behalf as an expert. But from the assistant coach's side and just from my experience this year, it's a lot to do with the players.
So Todd and I and you may not know this, but our listeners will, Todd and I are big zone defense guys. So as soon as you started talking about zone defense, I think both of our brains were very intrigued. So
You're my people. That's
yeah,
it. Because I don't know. We can't find. There's not too many of us.
no. So it just take our listeners through. Obviously, you know, we don't have to go into a zone synopsis here,
Yeah.
but you know, just kind of take us through your zone, what maybe makes it unique, and just tell our listeners a little bit about that defensive style.
Yeah. So I think it all started when we first got here and as a staff under Coach Kennedy. And it was, how can we keep our best players on the floor? Because the reality is we didn't have a whole lot of depth. Perhaps we weren't as athletic as we would have liked to be. How do you keep people in front, these things? And so that's where it first started. It was like, man, we got to keep our players on the floor out of foul trouble. I feel like the way they call their game, I feel like the Big Sky Conference is pretty physical, absolutely. But I think with the hand touches and these things, the game's changed. It's evolved from being able to just play like hard-nosed man defense with all these hand touches. And so I think that's where it started. For us, we don't talk a whole lot about it because it's more of a matchup zone for us, but I think it's unique and allows people for us to put players in different positions, whether we want to go big up top. You can have a variety. When we won it in 19, we had a shot blocker in the middle. We've also seen it with posts that can take charges and be almost a quarterback and talk and speak through rotations. And so they're our vocal leader in the middle. But it's our 2-3. We've switched some things out throughout the years, some different wrinkles with it. But I think just keeping our best players on the floor. And I think that continue where we can get better is just our rebounding, right? Because you got to rebound out of your area. You're not going to be matched up all the time with somebody. And so that's always been maybe the argument of, wow, you know, you can't rebound very well out of the zone. Or shooters, they're a shooting team. They're going to shoot you out of it. And I think that for us, we try to take away that 3-point line. So that's what our zone is built out of. At times we've done well, at other times we have not. But when we're at our best, that's what we're going to take away as a 3-point line and make you beat us with 2-pointers. Why don't y'all go shoot 2-pointers and see if you can do that 40 times and then we'll go from there. So in saying that, we got to get better on our 1-on-1 defense inside because that puts us on an island at times. And we've seen where teams have been effective in exploiting that. So, but again, it keeps our best players on the floor, and I feel like it's been effective, and it's not something that our league does consistently. So I feel like that's give us an edge in our identity.
Yeah, I think just to follow up, you mentioned it a couple times on your preparation, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know how many zone sets you have, but it's probably not nearly as many as man sets, right? Like,
right.
So it kind of makes your I guess maybe a team more predictable. I guess maybe what are some of the things that that teams do that give you maybe the most trouble out of it, right? Like, you know, they've seen you enough, now they're kind of figuring it out. And it depends on year to year and your wrinkles and all that. But what are some of the things that teams giving you trouble with? And then I kind of think of zone as it helps you offensively too, because it gives you a lot more time to, right? You don't have to spend 8 hours going through every set of every team, right? You can maybe spend some more time skill development offensively on your own stuff and be the best version you can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. To those points, I 100% agree. I think that early we're not very good because we've had players that haven't seen those rotations yet, or it's different. We don't dig down from in the high post. We have our guards flaring out. And so that's a little bit different. It's kind of a mix of a Syracuse zone. Obviously, they're a lot more length and athleticism. But that's kind of where it started. And then we've made some tweaks along the way. Our assistant coach, Coach Gregg, he's the one that has really come up with it and how we worked through some wrinkles together for that. But he's the guy he's our defense guy. He's our guru. So he can speak to it a little bit more than I can. But I think just in terms of preparation, early, we're still getting the hang of it. We haven't seen the overload. We haven't seen the middle screens. You know, we haven't seen we call them different things, so all the terminology is different, but loop, we haven't seen them, you know, do different things like this, the guard flash perhaps. But by the middle of the season and then towards, you know, when we get the March, we have. and you've seen it often. Now you understand how to guard it, and or based on scout, you always tweak things, right? It's not going to be the same every time depending on who you're playing. And so I think with that, it's really helped towards the end of the season just to be able to peak at the right times. And then when you win games at the tournament and you're playing back to back, you already have seen, again, a lot of those things throughout the year, at least twice. And then also teams run similar things. They're, in similar actions. So I think definitely that has helped. Where we get burned, one-on-one defense at times in the post, because of the way that we do things. That's sometimes where we get burned. And then if we're not quick enough with our hands up on the outside, then you allow those 3-point shots. It's like, that's what it's designed to do, is take away the 3-point line. And if we don't do that well, and then also give up the inside, well, now it's not working for us. And so we have to take away the 3-point line, and then we can worry about the rest. So that's kind of where we're at with things.
Yeah, I think that's a good point on it being ugly early, because I think a lot of coaches, that's why they don't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because they're like, early on, it's like, oh boy, we haven't seen this. And people, and I do more of a matchup too. And people are always asking like, well, how do you teach it? And I feel like, yeah, there's these core concepts and principles, but a lot of it is just putting them through different situations, right? Like,
yeah,
you got to communicate this out and talk it out. And here's how I would do it. But every situation is different depending on where you got caught and how you had to rotate and who had to X out or whatever it may be. So I think that's why a lot of coaches don't really, they're like, oh, it's not working. We're getting killed here. We got to get out of it. We got to go back, man. But
yeah, well, and I'm not going to say that I haven't had those moments. I'm like, oh, goodness gracious. Like, okay, man. But I think early, especially, I didn't want to tempt myself to go that, because I know it works. We've shown it works. We can do it. No, we had different personnel, and we're going to get, back there. I fully believe in the roster that we do have, and that we can execute it the way we need to. That wasn't the problem. Even if you looked at last year, that defensively at times we were really good. It was some other things that we needed to work on. And so, but I hear the opposite too, like with the shooting or whatever, 3-0, get out of it. They're shooting you out of it. Well, we can't stop that in man. So
right.
we can't stop that action in man either. So I think that how we do things is going to give us the best chance to win, but it makes us predictable at times. When have teams, when they only have one game on the bye week and they only have us, then they're preparing for zone all week. The ones that we have back-to-back games, not as much. And so I don't feel like that as much of an advantage, but the times that they know, hey, they're probably going to run majority of zone or all zone, sometimes that can be a disadvantage for us. And so that's why we're looking to do a little bit more with it, so that we can either do some different, add some wrinkles, some doubles, or, add some man moments in there too, to keep them guessing a little bit.
A little Rick Pitino style, go to that man, certain things. All right, so let's transition to our last couple segments here. First one is 30-second timeout. Your chance to talk about anything you want. Your floor. Very loose 30 seconds, but your family, your program, whatever's important to you and you feel like you want to talk about. It's your 30-ish seconds plus to speak.
Man, there's a lot to talk on. I think what I get excited about is just to know our program, just to know our team. I think with women's basketball at times, it's about the product and we're trying to get butts in the seats and these things. But if you truly get to know our team, get to know these young women, you can't help but support them. And so I think that's our job here as coaches, is to support them and their endeavors, but also get into community. We want to do community service. We want to be visible, and for people in Portland to get to know our team. And then you're going to get excited about it. You want to come back and see them play and support that. And so I think sometimes in women's basketball, it's hard to get that draw. But I think when you get to know them as people, you can't help but celebrate all that they got going on. And I think it's just excited about our roster. If you look at our team, we're from all different places, and that excites me. Of course, we want to recruit regionally and locally for sure, but a lot of people want a different experience than what they grew up on. And so we get an awesome opportunity to draw people from all over, and it creates a really fun atmosphere.
All right. So as we go into our last segment, as we like to say to our guests, some of these questions will be basketball related. Some of them have no relation to basketball. It's just Todd and my way to have some fun. So the first one is, we got best headline you got in an email that stood out. Something in an email and you're like, Whoa, what's this email about?
Oh my goodness. Yo, that's a good question and not a quick hitter because I have to think on that.
You're good.
I
Sorry,
mean,
I just threw it in there because you were talking about recruits standing out in their email.
Yeah.
So I figured there
No,
was something
yeah.
that popped.
Well, what I say is when you say Portland State, make me want to read it. And I haven't got a lot of them. Please do not start your highlight with a free throw. So, I mean, we see that and I'm just like, I appreciate you can knock it down. That's like basics, right? Thank you
Yeah.
so much. So, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that headline. But you're right. If you can make it unique, I'll read it. But we don't get too many. It's all like pretty plain. So, sorry to disappoint on that one.
That's all right.
You're good. We're going to go. Would you rather be skiing in the mountain or on the tropical beach?
Tropical beach. Give me all the sunshine.
See, I wasn't sure if she was going to be Pacific Northwest and be like, yeah, I want to be on the mountains.
Yeah, I mean, we go there for Christmas with family, but give me the sun. Yeah.
All right. So on that kind of topic, I guess favorite place to go outdoors, right? You're gonna go do something outdoors. There's a destination, somewhere up by your school.
Yeah. Favorite place on campus is gonna be on the 5th floor. It is a rooftop, like balcony area overlooking the city. You can see Mount Hood, you can see the river. Love that. Favorite place outdoors not on campus is at the lake. Whether it's at Flathead Lake or it's back on Lake Sakakawea in North Dakota with family fishing. Those are my 2 spots.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So you kind of talked about your playing style, but is there any, it could be professional, it could be pro, it could be high school. Is there any team that you watch, maybe an opponent or you were on a recruiting trip and you saw a high school team that just plays a really unique style that you just thought was really interesting or cool to watch?
Yeah, a few thoughts on that. When we played UC Irvine a while back, they had great action against our zone. So I had a lot of respect for that and made sure that we watched that film again over and over to get some ideas there because it was different. And I got to hop on the Golden State Warriors bandwagon, but just their action and how they move at their best with just, the movement offensively, I think it's pretty awesome. And then I'm not sure yet about it, but I'm learning more of the conceptual offense. Just thinking about, not positionless, maybe it could be, but just more about how we use all the actions and have a fast-paced brand of basketball that intrigues me. So I'm just looking to learn more.
All right. Last one here. If you could talk to any coach, past or present, who would it be and why?
Women's side, Dawn Staley. I mean, she's the GOAT, just really incredible. Her transition from player to coach and just really, just the success speaks for itself. And then on the men's side, Phil Jackson. I'd love to just pick his brain on the management style and his Zen approach and just different things. I've read a lot of his books and how do you get all that all together, the egos and everything to play together for one goal. And so definitely if I could get him in a room and have some lunch or something like that, that would be incredible.
Oh yeah, that'd be a great conversation. I bet you'd probably go you can go all kinds of places with Phil.
Absolutely.
Get out there.
Yeah.
All right, Coach. Well, we appreciate it so much. I mean, it's always unique and good to talk. We're from the Midwest, so it's awesome to get out to the Pacific Northwest and help our listeners and us learn about new programs and different things. So much great stuff here. We appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out. Thanks for the love.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast, hosted by Todd Zazadil and Jon Plicki. For more show content and upcoming episodes, follow us on Twitter at After the Timeout, or subscribe to our podcast for upcoming episodes. For show inquiries, you can email us at afterthetimeout@gmail.com. You can find all of our previous episodes on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts by searching After the Timeout. We appreciate you listening. Tune in next time for more coaching content in game, out of the game, and anything in between.